a lot of Black and brown communities, women in particular, and women generally, have negative net worth or they have very little net worth. So there's a $100,000 gap between sort of us as a community and the general public. What we want to do, the way that we build generational wealth is that you are going to have something left over at the end of the day, okay? And it's very simple. Assets on one side, liabilities on the other.
All right, so welcome everyone to tonight. This is the third installment of our Investor Studio series, Ion and Dream Big Ventures. And so it's also the last for now. So we have had a very successful run, and so you're closing down kind of final night of a really great show. And we're so thankful to Staci and to Dream Big. I'm gonna turn it over to Staci to kick off our panel. So, Staci.
Thank you, Christine. Hola, hola, Houston. Welcome to the Ion tonight for our Dream Big Investor Series. I am super excited for tonight, more than anything. This is groundbreaking when you look at this panel of wealth builders who are going to share with our community what it takes to build wealth. From these three all-Latina panels. So I'm just like, I love this. And you know, I started my company because, yeah, it was just an idea that I had, and then here it is coming to fruition. First of all, let me introduce myself, Staci LaToison. I'm a native Houstonian, Puerto Rican and Cuban. My amazing parents, Sergio and June, are here. My son, DJ, and my daughter, Sophia. Everybody's gotten to know Sophia. And I love bringing her to these events because it's so important not only for us, adults and professionals, to learn, but it's so important for our kids to learn. And the things that we didn't discuss in our households, we need to be talking about money, because the three things that we need in life: salud, our health; amor, love; y dinero, money. So we need to be experts at that. And that's what this panel is going to share with you today. So Dream Big Ventures, I invest in women and diverse-led startups in energy transition, climate tech, and health tech. I'm also an LP in 4 different funds: Mendoza Ventures, Soft Tech, where I'm an advisor, Portfolio, which is all women investors investing in women founders, and in Urban Capital Network, which is also based here in Houston. And I'm also a shareholder at Agility Bank, so I'm going to definitely get you connected to Agility Bank. And serve on several boards here: University of Houston, Houston Hospice, and also getting nominated for Discovery Green. So first of all, I'm going to introduce Nancy Almodovar. Guys, you cannot go down any street in Houston, Texas without seeing a sign for NAN and Company Properties. Has anybody here seen one of those signs? Or maybe you've bought one, or maybe you're a realtor under her. I mean, she's got $1 billion of sales in her asset portfolio. So she's going to talk to you all a little bit and introduce herself more. Just super impressed and happy that you're here. And you're like family, with my nephew Preston is one of her, he does all her videos for all the realtors, and it's just like incredible. So we've been around each other for a while and love just watching you and supporting you and just seeing you thrive. And then Ramona Ortega, she's here all the way from New York. Yes. So she's a former Wall Street attorney. turned two-time tech founder. So she's got FinTech and AI companies, and she's an expert, and I'm gonna let her tell more because her bio is so long, and I have a bad memory, I can't remember it all, but I mean, it's like so impressive. So you're hearing from some amazing experts here today. And also, Ramona, I had the pleasure of, for my first time going to South by Southwest this year, I was on 2 panels, and one of them was at the Latinx Innovation Hub, where she had over 1,000 Latinos who were entrepreneurs and investors and startups and tech professionals, and she brought everybody together with some really great speakers. So, I mean, with the backing of NASDAQ, she partners with them. So I'm gonna let them both tell more about themselves. Who wants to start?
I'll get started. My mic, y'all can hear me. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. This is an honor just to be here, with you guys. I'm so thankful for the opportunity to share my story. As Staci said, my name is Nancy Almodovar. I'm the CEO of NAN and Company Properties. I'm first generation. My parents are from Guanajuato, and it's so nice for me to be able to say my last name, Almodovar, and not have to change it for anyone to understand it, and to hear someone introduce me and not butcher it. So it's so nice to hear as well. I started my company in my kitchen table 10 years ago, both my kids running around me. It was a dream. I came home one day and I told my husband I'm starting my company. And I feel like real estate, all the other companies look the same. They're not doing anything innovative, and I really want a change. So I was known for selling in the luxury market, and we're still very known for that, but we sell in all price points. And whenever I started my agency, I had one agent. I had Preston, who I met through my one agent, who happened to be my childhood friend. And I just, I started a company. 10 years later, we have 142 agents. We have 3 offices. We have international affiliations. We have sold the most expensive home in Houston. We sold the most expensive condo in Houston. And I'm constantly just educating others on how to build wealth via real estate, because that's how I was able to grow. I flipped my first house when I was 21 to pay for my wedding, as a matter of fact. My husband and I didn't have money to pay for our wedding at the time. So we bought a house, we flipped it, remodeled it, sold it, had a lot next door, built a new construction. I don't even know if you know this, Staci. And that's how we were able to pay for our $50,000 wedding. Woke up the next day after our wedding, realized we were back to zero. So, started flipping all over again, right? We had to have the best party. These guys are laughing. They know I had a big wedding, mariachi, banda, everything. So we had a great time, and it's just been such a fun ride. My husband and I just got the highest award a citizen can get from the city of Houston for our volunteer work and for doing so much for the community. Thank you. And I love this city. We always want to give back. Giving back is so important to us. We started NAN Fam Cares and NAN Cares. And it's been great because every year we're able to pick different schools that we can bring toys to. And just, the way that we give back is, yes, by helping the community, but also educating. I feel like, as Staci mentioned, the conversations about money, most of the time, you're taught how to just work and be a worker. And it's so important to also have dreams and want to do things, but also telling individuals, this is what you need to do. At my office, most of my team, they're in their 20s. They're very young. And one of the first things I say to them, and Jared is here filming, and Chloe over here, who, I can't run my life or business without her, is you guys got to get pre-qualified to buy a house. And 22, 23, you just got to get started, which is the hardest part, I think. So that's my quick story of me and my agency. And again, I'm just so excited to be here today.
I think, yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much for inviting me here. I'm super excited to be here in Houston. I think it's my second time in Houston, thanks to Staci and Jesse and just the ION, and so excited to meet you, and we got to work together. Again, my name is Ramona Ortega. I'm the CEO and founder of WealthBuild.ai and My Money, My Future. I've been in finance and in FinTech for the last decade now. Before that, though, I want to talk a little bit about the story, because I think that for so many women, especially women of color, that are sort of in these spaces, it's not a linear path, right? I didn't necessarily go to business school to become a founder or an attorney. I grew up very working class in California. My mom was a farm worker. I was the first to go to college. I went to UCLA, followed my dreams to New York, worked for 60 Minutes. I was going to be a reporter. Did that for a while, and it was great. And then went on to a career in international human rights work between Geneva and the US. Where I was a delegate to the World Conference Against Racism in South Africa in 2000. So later transitioned, went to law school at Fordham Law School in New York City, and then worked at the highest court in bankruptcy, the SEC, and then did securities litigation and worked on some of the big cases like Madoff and MF Global. So I had a sort of, what I always say, I had an education around finance inside the belly of the beast. And one of the things that I realized was that I didn't learn any of this. I needed to know this stuff. And in fact, it's not that complicated. There's a lot of moving pieces, but it's actually not that complicated. And what is my role in terms of providing this information in a way that people can understand? Because there's a lot of shame around money. There's a lot of shame around not knowing how to use your money, how to put it to work. But for me, it was always about like, well, we work really hard, and when we look at venture capital, when we look at what we call the capital markets, Wall Street, most of that money is coming from pension funds, which come from workers. So people like my parents, people like my family. And so I wanted a way to make sure that we understood how that money was being tracked, and so that we can also generate some of that wealth in our communities. We work too hard not to own the wealth, and we own less than 2% of the wealth in this country. So I took the leap of faith in 2016 to start my own company. We were very early in the world of FinTech, and that means financial services meets technology. And when we started, we really were figuring out how to provide financial education at scale. That was great work. We were very early in the space. I became a great thought leader in the space, and you can actually see my story on HBO's Gaming Wall Street, so I want to plug that. If you haven't seen it, please go look at that. I'm a political impact leader. I sit on the boards of CDFIs. I'm very involved in all aspects of sort of capital markets and financial services. And fast forward to 2021, I started thinking about how do we use AI, and this was before obviously ChatGPT and the sort of the all of the stuff that's happening right now in generative AI. And so what we're doing is building a AI financial advisor in your pocket so that everyone has access to financial advice, quality, personalized, sort of on demand. And so we're very excited, obviously, to be in the space right now, and we hope to one day IPO the company. And this is important because there has not been a sort of a Latina-led IPO in this country. And we need to be at the forefront. We represent the largest growth opportunity in the US, not to mention even Latin America. And people of color are the generators, trillions of dollars of buying power in this country, but that buying power is not going towards financial services and building wealth, and that's what we're doing. So I'm super excited to be sharing some of the work that we're doing and some advice around personal finance tonight.
Yes, thank you. Let's give these powerhouse ladies a round of applause. Incredible. So I got a little bit of an inside track for both of you, which is, so Nancy had Empower Her dinner, and it was a curated dinner with her and several other really successful realtors from around the country, and she hosted it here in Houston. So got a chance to listen on a lot of things that maybe we don't know, the basics about real estate we might be familiar with, but other ways that, so maybe you can share some of that with our audience.
As far as my journey through purchasing, or
Yeah, Like you were sharing some of the different avenues besides just, having your primary house, which I think, a lot of people, we work so hard just to buy our first primary house, but how you're building wealth through real estate
No,
investing.
definitely. And I think, again, at least in my house, this is our house, this is our dream house. We're going to live here for 30 years, right? Who's had that said to them? I probably move every 2 to 3 years, and the reason, it may not be normal for some, but for my husband and I, we just upgraded. My first house that we flipped was my master bedroom was a beauty salon. Women were getting their hair washed right where I slept. So it's, but we remodeled that house and we flipped it and we probably made about $50,000. And then we used that money and we did it again and then we did it again and we just continued to upgrade. And even with our own personal home. So we've always just been into investing, and that's how we were able to build our wealth. It doesn't start with $1 million house. I mean, our first house was $30,000. Now those houses don't exist. This is also 20 years ago. But, we started with one where it was $30,000, then it was 50, then we were able to go to 200, and it's just about learning the different options that you have. For me, I was always raised, you use your own money, you don't use the bank's money. You don't have debt. Debt is bad. And I mean, in my opinion, and I don't know if you agree, debt is not bad. It's very important to learn how to use the bank's money to benefit you and help you make money. And that's what my husband and I were able to do. We would buy the house, get it financed, and even borrow to remodel it. But we knew that we had to get it done within 12 months, so we didn't have to pay more than 12 months of interest. And that's how we were able to continue to buy. We did that for a couple of years. We had a couple of rental homes. We held on to real estate. If I could go back and tell my younger self, I would say hold on to everything, because now, my first rental house that we bought that was in Edo, we paid $62,000. That house has sold 5 times, and I think the last time it sold was for $650. I almost fainted. So that just gives you an idea that hold on to your real estate. We finally sold everything and bought a building where our headquarters is in the Heights, across from Local Foods on Yale, between 6th and 7th. Not sure if you guys are familiar with that, but when we found that piece of land, I thought, how are we going to have a building, right? It almost didn't sound real. Well, we got a small business loan, amazing interest rate. We didn't have to pay a payment for 12 months because it was a small business loan. And I'm huge on always trying to educate that there's so many different options. We got the land, got the construction, and today our building's worth probably $7 million. And if you would have told me that I was going to have a $7 million building one day, I would have fainted, or said, yeah, right. But it just shows you that, with real estate, there's just so many options, but it's about educating yourself. And that's how we were able to build our wealth. And even, again, back to our primary residence. Now we have kids. Now I can't move around as much as I used to because I have to find a place for them. But it's also important to give yourself some goals and that you can upgrade and maybe keep this house, rent it out, let it pay the mortgage, and what you're making off of that, whether it's $1,000 or $2,000, use that to pay something else.
Thank you for sharing that. Wow, it's incredible. $1 billion, just like Jay-Z and Beyonce, $1 billion that elevator. $1 billion in the Ion right now. Ramona, what can you share with the audience about finances and how your WealthBuild.ai is going to shape the future?
Sure. So I don't want to talk about the company right now, but I will talk about it. But here, I want to kind of step back for a second. I think there's 2 ways to think about money that are really important. The first is your relationship to money. Money is a means to an end. That means that it's different for everyone. For you, it's real estate. It could be economic security. It could be that you want to travel the world. You want to have financial freedom. It could be I want to buy whatever I want whenever I want it. All of those are okay, but you need a plan specific to your dreams. I'm not someone that's a real estate person because I'm an entrepreneur. It's very different, right? So every dream is okay, but you have to have a plan that matches it so that you have economic security and you're building generational wealth, which is why personal finance and wealth building is not a one-size-fits-all, which is why you need that kind of unique plan to fit your specific lifestyle. So that's one thing. When we think about building generational wealth or wealth generally, it's actually quite simple. It's about net worth at the end of the day, which net worth is simply if you take all of the assets that you have, your cash, your house, your watch, your shoes, your purse, whatever it is. An asset is anything that can be sold and at a liquidity, right? So you can get cash for it. If you take all those assets and you pay all your bills, do you have anything left over? And the problem in this country is that a lot of Black and brown communities, women in particular, and women generally, have negative net worth or they have very little net worth. So there's a $100,000 gap between sort of us as a community and the general public. What we want to do, the way that we build generational wealth is that you are going to have something left over at the end of the day, okay? And it's very simple. Assets on one side, liabilities on the other. And so the way that I want people to think about it is buy assets, not things, right? So when I buy something, if it's over $500, I'm always thinking, is this something that will accrue in value? Will it go up, right? You want to buy things that actually add value to your portfolio. They could be anything, whether that's a watch, a purse, a house, a car. Cars are terrible assets to have because they depreciate the minute you drive them off the lot. So you don't want to be putting your cash in an asset that depreciates. So that's the asset side. Buy assets, not things. You can quote that. Go put it on Twitter. On the other side is sort of the debt management, right? And in finance, we talk a lot about leveraging debt. And this is to your point. Especially in the Latino community, we're often told that debt is bad, right? Don't go into debt, don't go into debt. Leveraging debt to buy assets is a great idea. You got to pay attention to the terms. You got to pay attention to the interest rates. We're in a high interest rate environment right now, so you want to be careful about that. But you're always leveraging debt to buy an asset, to make money. What you don't want to do is leverage debt to go into debt, right? Which is what credit cards are. Because that's the thing about compound interest. It either works for you or it works against you. It's that simple. In credit cards, it compounds at what, 20%, 15%, sometimes even 29%. It's not working for you. You put that money into investments, whether it's real estate or the stock market or other types of assets, it generally will return. And that's what you're looking for. So always think about sort of your wealth building techniques as whether is this an asset or is this an obligation? You want to try to reduce those obligations and increase those assets. That will really help you understand how you're going to do that. The other thing is that I think about, anybody play chess in here? You're always trying to go to the other side of the board. You're trying to win. And you have a bunch of pieces. And these.
Sophia plays chess.
Okay, Sophia, there she knows what I'm talking about. Each of the chess pieces does something different, right? It has different sort of mechanics of it, and it'll help you win. Think about that as the financial products, because this is where finance gets tricky. It's not that it's complicated, but there's a lot of moving pieces all at once. And each of those pieces are different products: life insurance, investment, real estate, your savings, your alternative investments, your credit cards. Anything that touches money has a product generally associated with it. So that's how you want to start thinking about which products do I need and how do they work together to get me to the other side, to live my best life. So I want to just leave it there for a second, and I'll get into some of the more like sort of how you invest, but that's the really important piece, because once you understand that, you don't have to get bogged down into all of the nitty-gritty of like what are the other little pieces. It falls onto one side of the balance sheet or the other. Then you start addressing, how do I increase my assets? How do I decrease my obligations?
Yes, thank you. It was really great information, isn't it? That's what everybody needs to remember. Make sure your assets are on the positive side.
Buy assets, not things.
So let's talk about right now, our population is the fastest growing. You know, we've got the most, maybe average age is 20 years old right now for Latinos. You know, I mean, women, we're 51% of the population. You know, why? I get sick and tired of hearing women say, oh, well, I need to go and ask my husband, or, oh, you know, he makes the financial decisions and I just, you know, give money philanthropically. And I'm like, I've always been very independent. My parents can attest to that. You know, I never even thought about being married when I was young. I was just like, man, I want to travel the world. Like what you were saying, you have to have these goals and reach these goals. And I have traveled the world 10 times over, and excited now to be able to make different investments. You know, I was 25 years old when I bought my first house because I was motivated because I had a young son at 17, and I wanted to make sure he had a backyard to play in, and that house had a pool. So all his friends came over. But it's, you know, extremely important for us to not be afraid of money. It's not scary. We need to become experts at it, because believe me, life, we talk about financial wellness and happiness and your mental health, and you know how a lot of us know how difficult it is if you're living paycheck to paycheck and you've got responsibilities and you've got medical bills and, you know, all kind of bills piling up, and you feel like you're falling in a hole and you can't dig yourself out. And so it's a horrible feeling. And you want to be on the positive side of that and have the power to, not only am I building wealth for my family, but I can also now give back to my community. I can also be philanthropic and help others and teach others, because to me, education is key. And that's something that, you know, I appreciate my parents always instilling in me, that get your education, and I'm the first in my family to graduate college. Anybody else here that's first gen? Yeah. I see you back there. Anybody who's an immigrant? Yeah, so amazing diversity here in our room. You know, we know, like, when your back is to the wall, you have to dig deep and figure out a way, you know, to climb out of it. So I was going to ask you, what are some conversations that you feel are critical to start having in our circles and at our tables?
I think for me, and you touched on this, it's education. I went to the University of Houston. I was the first as well.
Go Cougs!
Yes, I was the first.
House? Any other Cougs in the house? Woo!
Yay! I was the first to graduate, but I feel like education is key and having a plan. You know, we want to educate so much on money, wealth, and what do I invest in, and what different financing options do I have in real estate, so many different things. But I think it's about having some sort of plan, not some sort of a plan that you want to stick to, and having that self-discipline. You know, for me, I made lots of sacrifices to get to where I am today, where I wake up every day 4:30 in the morning. Some people are going to say, that's crazy. I can't wake up at 4:30. It is, but I needed to do that to get to where I wanted to be. And in order to wake up at 4:30 in the morning, Monday through Friday, I know I can't have a drink that night. I know that I have to go to bed at least by 9 p.m. I know that I have to eat right because I have to have the energy. And all those things matter. You can't drink every day. You can't go to sleep at midnight and wake up, you know, at 4 in the morning and think you're going to be productive. That's not going to work. So it's about also having that self-discipline of, this is my plan. What do I need to do to get there? Not only by working, but, you know, it's your mind, it's your body. There's so many different things that go into it. And then also having the right questions are so important. Ask so many questions that if, you know, I can give anybody advice, it's just ask as many questions as you can, because that's how you're going to learn. Whether it's, again, health, business, how to invest, where to invest, just asking those questions. It's so important. And I feel like a lot of people aren't having those conversations because they're either embarrassed or they don't want to sound dumb, or, you know, they feel like, well, maybe I should already know that because I'm at this point in my life. And none of that matters, honestly. I think it's just important to educate yourself and to have a plan.
Yes, that's really great tips and so true. And at Chevron, I didn't really know about how to pay for, scholarships. My parents were like, oh, well, you have to get a scholarship. Well, they told me about the Vanguard 529 plan. So, Sophia will be able to go to Columbia or Harvard or Stanford or whatever school that she pleases, because I know she's already got the grades, because I've been putting money back for that, and I don't want her to, she can't go because her parent can't afford it,
So it's funny, the shame thing comes up a lot. I'm working on a book called No Shame in the Money Game, and it's precisely because of this. I've seen so many families lose money because they're not asking the right questions. A lot of people not taking the match at work for their first 401k, their second 401k. How many of you have not rolled over your 401ks and you have 2 or 3 401ks out there, right? These are sort of the logistical plays that help you understand sort of what you need to do to consolidate your money and kind of take ownership of it. In terms of asking questions, I have a couple of gifts up there. This is a money box that we have that you can use with your family, your fiance, your friends, to talk about money questions, because it's very important. People getting married, for example, if you've gone on dates and you haven't talked about money and you're going to get married, wrong choice. You've got to talk about money, because it's going to predominate in terms of what you think about your life in the future. The other thing is that, and this is particular to the Latino community, but I've heard it in other places too, if we want to build generational wealth, you better be having conversations with your parents and your siblings about how you're going to build that wealth, right? And how you're going to protect it. And a lot of us are now looking at our parents. They're in retirement. They're starting to get older. We're thinking about what the properties. They're thinking about, do we have life insurance? There's a couple of questions that I always ask. Whose name is on the deed? Do you have a trust? Do you have a will in place? Lots of people, families and communities across this country have lost wealth because of estate planning problems. Now, I'm a lawyer. I'm happy to do probate for you, and I'm going to get lots of money out of that because people didn't do what they needed to do to protect their assets. Just sort of a heuristic here, which is like sort of a rule of thumb, not advice, a rule of thumb. If you have a property over $1 million, it should be in a trust, right? Not only for taxes purposes, but because it's going to be a lot easier to manage if something happens in your family. So you can use a will, but wills can be contested. So these are kinds of things that you want to think about in terms of estate planning. You want to make sure that your beneficiary list of your life insurance plan is taken care of. A lot of people talk about life insurance. They don't know that there's 2 flavors of it. There's term life insurance. That only lasts for a term. It's like car insurance. Once you stop paying, or if that term expires, you're done. And just because you have it at work, as soon as you leave that job, you don't have it anymore. Most companies will provide some universal life insurance. The younger you are, the better. Because guess what? That becomes an opportunity to borrow against it later in life. If you're going to buy a house, you have maybe another project you're working on, you can sometimes borrow against that. And this is how we leverage the wealth that we're building. So these are the sort of the techniques of it. But the important piece here is, if you are serious about building generational wealth, you need to know what tools you have to have in your toolbox. Life insurance is one of them, but estate planning is the second. Talking about philanthropy. I remember I was at UCLA. Any Bruins in the house? Nope. Oh, okay. Well, wrong state. Okay, fine. Undergrad at UCLA, and I was an English major, by the way, which means you can do anything if put your mind to it. So I remember looking at the buildings, and there would be plaques with the names of families. And I grew up poor. I had no idea what philanthropy and family offices were. And I was like, well, why are there names on these buildings? Like, how do they do that? How do they get that? And so, long story short, I finally found out. I was like, oh, this is part of philanthropic giving. When you have an estate, when you have enough money, different communities that really incorporate this in part of their plan. So for example, if there's any kinds of organizations that you care about, your school, your church, your synagogue, whatever it may be, these are ways to build this into your plan. Even as a company, a shareholder, I can allocate shares of my company to my law school if I wanted to, right? So there's lots of ways to give back. And I think that's the key thing here is to really think about your estate planning, especially for Latinos, because we tend not to talk about death, and we tend to not talk about like the assets, and guess what, we lose them. I talked to many families in COVID who didn't prepare and they lost properties, so we don't want to do that.
Yes, and I was going to say, don't we all want to see Almodovar and Ortega on some buildings one day? I believe it's going to happen. Actually, LaToison is going to be at Discovery Green. I have 2 plaques that are coming in this June that I'm very proud. I was going to say the LaToison family, and also dream big, dreaming bigger. How much time do we have? Because I know the audience is going to want to ask a lot of questions. Okay, all right. Let me see. Let's talk about the future. That's what I'm really interested in here. You all are just have these really incredible things. You've already accomplished so much. So what do you see for the future, and how can we empower our future leaders who are here in this audience?
Oh my God, how much time do we have? No, as for myself, this year, I just wanted to really focus. I feel like I'm at a point where my business runs itself. I have an amazing leadership team. I have a great support team. So I just wanted to get really into educating. I know there's a lot of scary things that are happening in the world right now. The media doesn't make it any better. What I tell my team, and I'll share with you, is if everything was rainbows and flowers on the news, would you watch it? No. It's their job to, if something caught on fire, to say there was an explosion. So I almost, and I don't know if you disagree, don't watch the news just because I need to be in the right mindset. I need to be in the right mindset to focus and do the things that I need to do for my team, and just focus on what's in front of me so I can know, okay, well, 6 months from now, this is what I need to be doing. I'm opening an office in the Woodlands, or we'll be at 5 offices by the end of the year, or this is our quota, or I want to give this much time back to the community, or, with my kids, I have 2 children, 11 and 12, and I want them to be able to do these 2 things. One of our goals for them this year was to start a business. So I sat with them on a Saturday and I said, okay, you're starting a vending machine business. And my son, who's all about computers, started to, I had him search up the brands of different vending machines. My daughter, she's an artist, so I had her design her logo in Canva, and I had them have a meeting together and decide what they were going to call it together, because it's teaching them how to have those conversations about having a business name, the research, and actually putting the money into it. And, my son said, but I don't have any money. I said, you have an investor. That's me. So at the top of the line, you need to tell me your cost. And I had them write all of this down. And it's about teaching, but actually doing it. Okay, if the vending machine is $3,000, right? $3,000, I'll give you $3,000, but you have to pay me back. So that's part of what I see in the future, is just education. I think, it'll be a great year for sure.
Love that. Yep. And Ramona?
So a couple of things. I like to always think about sort of a 5-year plan and then your long-term plan. So all of you should have a 5-year plan, which is what are your financial goals in the next 5 years, and then map that out, because I do think
take notes right now.
Not having a plan is a plan; it's just a bad one. Okay, so you have to have a plan, because it's working backwards. This is not brain surgery, right? I mean, it's pretty much like, if you want to buy a house or if you want to open a business, what are the things I need to do to get there? And then you work backwards. So the 5-year plan is a long enough time to kind of get you to that place, because money, especially building wealth or opening a business or fixing credit scores, all that stuff, it takes time. There is no silver bullet. So you got to make sure that you're there. The other thing is think about your financial plans also in terms of age. So those of you who are, anywhere from 20 to 28, here's a couple of things that you need. You should have a Roth IRA. You should be taking the match at work. And hopefully you're got some, some life insurance, maybe even if it's just term. Probably start thinking about your investment strategy. It doesn't have to be in the market. It should be some of it in the market, and some of it should be, maybe real estate or alternative investing, etc. You want to diversify your portfolio. That's all that means. It's like you want to mix. You don't want all your eggs in one basket. That includes within your 401k and investment strategy. In post 30s to 45, you want to start thinking about consolidation. If you have multiple 401ks, you want to bring them over, roll them over into an IRA. Make sure that it's an credible institution. Making sure that you're understanding what you're invested in. I can't tell you how many times I've looked at portfolios and there's cash in a 401k. I was like, why is this in cash? And they're like, I don't know. I invested it and I thought it was going to something. No. You got to actually look at your portfolio. What is it doing? What's it returning? Remember, the S&P 500, which is the average in the stock market, is returning about 10 to 13%. You want to be beating that. You want more money than that, right? So we want to look at your portfolio. The other thing is that you want to start thinking about your sort of estate, right? And what are your goals there? If you have children, you should have a 529 plan. You should have some universal life insurance. And then you should start thinking about your FU plan. I call it the FU fund. That's in your brokerage account. That's the money that I always joke that that's the money that men buy boats with, and
boats and jets.
Boats and jets with, right? And that's usually happening in a brokerage account. So if there was a checklist, and by the way, I have some materials up there for the young folks. It's kind of like the 5 steps to building wealth. But you want to have an IRA, you want to have a 401k, you want to have a brokerage account, and then you want to think about real estate and alternative assets. Staci, in investing as an angel investor, is in the area of alternative assets. If you buy crypto, that's an alternative asset. So there's lots of ways to diversify how you're making money. And most people, frankly, should have many of those. You shouldn't just have one. It's not just about your 401k. So I think that's sort of like how you think about the plan and the pieces on the chess game and how you move them forward to achieve your lifetime goals.
See, this panel needs to be going to every university because they prey on students offering these high, credit cards, and they can just get them just like that, but without them having any knowledge and awareness, and then they get into all this debt. And same with student loans. I mean, I'm telling you, we need to take this on the road, don't you think? Does everybody here agree?
Well, that's why I'm
Don't
building.
You wish you knew this?
That's why I'm building a company,
Yes,
so it doesn't
that's
have to be me.
So please tell them about WealthBuild.
But I think this is actually really important. This is actually why I started a tech company, because I can't replicate me to talk to 1 million people, right? But with AI, with technology, you can replicate that kind of advice. Generative AI, and we won't get into the technicalities, it's not exactly generative AI, we're using a lot of different tools, but part of it is actually creating a bot that speaks like me, that talks to you, that asks you these questions, so that way everyone can access it, so that we can drop our API directly into a Venmo, we can drop it into a bank, we can drop it into a student center, right? So that
Nancy
people can
can
access
also
it.
share it with her clients, people who need to raise their credit score so they can get approved.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Tell us a little bit more about WealthBuild.
I mean, it's, you guys, you've heard the whole thing about generative AI, ChatGPT, maybe you've used it. It's very exciting. It is the new threshold. It is going to change how we do financial services, including real estate. Now, it's not the end all be all. It's not going to take your job for the most part, but it is going to change how we interface with financial services, whether that's your bank, whether that's a mortgage, finance, et cetera. First of all, I haven't stepped into a bank in forever. I'm not trying to talk to an insurance broker. I want to talk to a bot. I want to do it at 3 a.m. when I'm up, right? It's so what it's doing is really democratizing access to quality financial guidance that's personalized. And this is going to be a game changer, which is why one day, hopefully, we'll ring the bell at NASDAQ and IPO the company.
Yes, make sure you invite us. Yes, we want to be there too.
Yeah.
I love that. I got a chance to see her demo today, and I am so excited. I reached out to Mendoza Ventures, and you're going to meet with them next week.
Yes.
And I already told them, let's go invest. Let's go invest. This is fire.
Yeah, no, it's exciting. I think that the point is that everyone needs it, right? And the other thing is that we plan to also be in Spanish in year 2 and 3. So Latin American markets are ripe for this. We have so much money, not only in this country, but in all over the world, really. We're diaspora of folks. We have the opportunity to really build the wealth that we deserve. We are the backbone of this country and in Latin America, and everyone deserves to be you're the mogul of real estate if they want to, or to be an entrepreneur. I want everyone to have the opportunity to build the life that they want, and you need money to do that. And it's about self-fulfillment. It's about financial freedom. So it's not just about being rich. Let's get that out of our mind. It's about what is freedom to you, however that looks. Ideally, one day I'm going to buy a castle and live off the land and be totally outside of tech. Right? That's my goal, right? So I got to build this wealth so I can get out of here and go live in my castle. But it's whatever it is for you.
You can buy it from Nancy.
I can buy it.
Yes,
Nancy, let's
I
go
have
into
castles for sale.
Castles are terrible.
Her team is on it. She's already found it for you.
I want to also add a little bit to what Ramona just said. It's not about, for me, it was never about being rich. That was never my goal. For me, it was about, honestly, I love serving individuals and I love helping people. It's changed through the years, but when I started real estate, for me, it was about, okay, I want to help others, buy real estate and that couple find their dream home. And then it turned into investing. I want to teach others on how to buy a building, on how to buy apartment complexes and make money, or how to flip a property. I have Airbnb as well now. And
one of my dreams is to buy a parking lot.
Yeah,
you go outside all these Astros games, and people are paying $60 to go to the game. So I'm like, man, I wish I owned that parking lot.
No, sometimes even more. But it changes. And then I had children, and it was about having that freedom to be able to go have lunch with them. I wake up every morning and I make them breakfast. I pack their lunch. I do this every day. So it changes, why you're doing certain things. And I feel like it's very important for you to know what that is that you're looking for yourself.
And I'm glad you mentioned that too. Being an entrepreneur, I'm able to make Sophia breakfast and, and be there for her. So that's so important.
Sure.
Well, I think right now we're going to let the audience ask questions. I'm sure you all have a lot of great questions to ask. Don't be shy. I'll hand it over to Christine.
So I have the mic. There's one of me. Kindly raise your hand, and I will not run to you because I don't want to trip on the forum stairs. So formulate your question, raise your hand, and I will get to you as fast as I can. When I give you the mic, say your name so we all know who you are.
Doctora.
Hi, Staci. My name is Doctora Pamela Hernandez. I am also a real estate investor, but I want some advice on how to talk to your family about building generational wealth and get them on the same track, right? Because I'm the only conscious one. I'm the only one that takes care of my money, looks at assets and not liabilities. I have a brother who's really invested in us as well, but they make bad choices as a family, right? I myself don't have any kids, but I want to leave some generational wealth for my nephews. I want to, educate others as well. I'm an educator myself, so I want to also give back to higher ed and all that. But how do we get our families on the same track? What do you tell them? What do you propose to them? I don't know. Give me some advice.
That's a great question.
So for me, so my family, they own supermarkets. My dad, started off with a painting company. He's owned different businesses. And honestly, that was such a struggle of mine because coming from a very old school Mexican family, he knows, I don't know, and you just can't have an opinion. So sometimes when it comes to your dad, because you're disagreeing, you're being disrespectful. So what we started doing is we started having just business meetings where I would trick them. I literally had to trick them into saying, okay, we're gonna meet and we're just gonna talk about what's going on with our businesses. And then all of a sudden, it turned into them asking me questions because they started listening to see what I was doing and it became interesting for them. So it's honestly just, let's sit down and let's talk about what I have going on, what you have going on, and you're now comparing different situations. And then you can talk about those obstacles that you may have that if you're, I don't know, at Thanksgiving, that is awkward to bring up because you're having those meetings. I honestly make my parents meet with me once a week and we just talk about it. And I'll even bring my kids. Half of the time they listen. I'm excited if they listen for half of it because if they pick up one little thing, then that's what's important to me.
I would say and that's wonderful that you have that opportunity, and sounds like there's this kind of historical sort of business people in your family. For those that don't have that and that might be struggling with sort of parents or siblings, one of the tricks that I've seen work is when you're talking to parents about sort of their money situation or their house and about how we're going to take care of them, especially in estate planning. I will say, let them know that the government will take their and their taxes. Like, do you not want to pay taxes on this stuff? Because everyone hates paying taxes, right? And a lot of times if you're not doing the correct estate planning, they're going to pay a lot of taxes somewhere down the line. So that's one thing, right? It's like to grab onto the things that they're kind of like worried about or that they are sort of interested in and kind of have that conversation indirectly. The other thing is really making sure that you're trying to find some common ground with siblings, because a lot of times that's the fights are going to happen there, right? And so figuring out sort of who's on the title, protecting that to the extent possible, protecting your own assets, because that's the other thing. I mean, if you have nephews and nieces, you can have your own insurance plans and all of that, but a lot of times it comes down to property, actually. So I would say that just asking those questions inadvertently, especially if they're not going to sit down and have that conversation. It's like, hey, Mom, when was it, what are the taxes? Have you seen, have you paid new taxes on the house? What does that look like? Oh, wait, where is that deed? Because I can tell you right now, most people have no clue what their net worth is, which means they also don't know where those documents are. And when the last thing that you want to be doing when someone's either sick or has passed is dealing with financial matters. So start to clean that stuff up now.
Thank you for that advice. I try to share as much as I can, but and you just hope that they're listening at some point. But
I have the mic. So first of all, I have to say that thank you for doing this. My cheeks hurt from smiling so much watching the three. I hope I can say this: three kick-ass Latinas doing their thing. It is so impressive. It's just I'm proud. I'm not even Latin American, but I'm just so proud of seeing the three of you. And I hope that
Thank you, Lee Jordan. He was an executive at Chevron, so we worked together, and he has been extremely supportive of everything that I've been doing. It means a lot that you're here. Thank you.
It's my pleasure, Staci. I hope that you get in front of not just audiences that are people of color, but all audiences, so they can see what you represent. It's so powerful. Staci mentioned formerly with Chevron. Now I'm on boards of corporate, nonprofit, and private equity boards. But I don't know anything about VC work. I don't know anything about entrepreneurial work. And I'd like to learn more about the investing side of it. And if you can talk a bit about how to identify, how to get on that channel of identifying the right organizations to invest in that are doing entrepreneurial work like the three of you are doing. I'd be really interested in that. So thanks.
Yeah, I started off as an angel investor. So I'm with Angeles Investors, and that was the first series. I brought the CEO, David Olivencia, here, and now they asked me to be the regional lead for Texas and for New Mexico. So, I mean, we have quarterly pitch meetings, where different startups pitch to us, and it's also a really great network because everybody there is pretty high net worth individuals who are executives and are on corporate boards, so all over the country. There's also the Houston Angel Network that's here, and I would love for you to be an LP in Dream Big Ventures Fund 1, which I'm going to be launching later this year. So, it's kind of, what is it that you want to, that you're feel very connected with, if there's a specific you want to invest in AI and FinTech and cybersecurity, well, you could invest in Mendoza Ventures, who also invests in diverse-led startups and women. Part of the reason why I went to Portfolio was because it's women investing in women investors, founders, because we need that, because there's such a huge gap. So I think it's, really figuring out what it is that you're passionate about. And I'm here to help. Call me up anytime. All right.
I think we have time for just one more question, so I'll take the one question. I will put a plug in for Urban Capital Network. They're one of our partners, and so they do exactly that. They help educate people who are wanting to get more into the VC world and democratize access to investing. So we can talk later at the networking. So I'll put a plug in for our partners, and then I'll run up and take our final question. Say your name.
Hi, my name is Mobast. Thanks for the great panel. My question is, what are some, lesser known but yet effective strategies to building wealth? Appreciate it.
I'll just take, we can all talk about it, but I will say this, that once you've reached sort of like a checklist of the traditional things, real estate, like your first home, 401k, maxed out your savings account, emergency savings, your credit debt ratio is good, sort of you want to think about other types of investment accounts, right? And I think that we're looking at different alternative assets. Real estate, I would say it's multifamily real estate. You want to look at that. You can also invest in REITs now, which are real estate investment trusts. So you don't even have to buy directly into a home. You can buy into a portfolio of real estate, right? So now I think the one great thing about FinTech is that it made it very accessible. So again, you want to start thinking about strategies for leveraging your assets so that you can be diversifying your different sort of your assets and your investment strategies. The other thing is it's not only you can invest in VC and angel, which you're investing in tech startups. Remember, that is a long road though. I just want to make sure that people understand that you invest and then you wait 5 to 7 years. It's high risk. You've got to be willing to lose that money. But you invest in a company early and you'll get a nice return, right? So that's one way. But you can also invest in other companies like LLC companies, restaurants. Look, if I was a local investor, I'd be looking at grocery stores. I'd be looking at chains. I'd be looking at all kinds of different things. So that's the other thing, is looking at sort of your family or friends and saying, hey, is there an LLC opportunity where we can pool our money and buy a property, buy a chain of stores, buy a laundromat? The point is that there's lots of opportunities at every level. Learning how to leverage some of those sort of opportunities with the funds that you already have. Again, when you have a business, you can go to a bank and oftentimes get a leveraged loan. So that's really important. And then in your portfolio itself, you want to make sure that you're diversified across asset classes. Look, I'm not going to say that crypto is the way, that crypto is one of them, but I've been long on blockchain for a long time. I bought Bitcoin at $100. So, I was long on it. I'm still in Ether. I think blockchain we're still early days. So I would put, if you have enough money, put $100 a month in there. It doesn't hurt. It's going to transform into something. So again, diversifying your different asset classes and strategies.
So I want to wrap that up with saying, make sure that you invest in yourself and that you dream big. So first, thank you so much, Nancy and Ramona. I mean, this was a dream come true for me. This is incredible. So happy that you made time because you both are extremely busy running your businesses. And thank you all for being here this evening. I want to thank the ION for this partnership. It has been incredible the last 3 months, and hopefully we'll be doing even more of this if you all would like to see more of this. And we'll come back in the fall for additional programming. And of course, I have to thank one of our sponsors, SoftTech, who's providing the beverages that you'll have up top there. And I want to thank my incredible all-Latina team, Sarah Smith, who is the content lead and executive director, producer, and of course Jessica Bolanos and Nelson Vanegas from Good Sparrow. She's also a product of U of H's Wolf Center of Entrepreneurship, and just excited to see you all. They're really incredible, and I take them everywhere. I wish that you were everywhere with me, and of course Oriana, who made sure. all these beautiful. She makes sure that everything just runs smoothly, from the flowers to the DJing, booking the DJs, the catering, everything, making sure just that everything is on point. So thank you. And, thank you, Mom and Dad, Sophia, DJ, love you. Thank you, Jesse Martinez, for all of your support. If it weren't for you, I would not have met Ramona. And you're always just such a champion and advocate in our community and bringing, all your contacts from Silicon Valley, here to Houston. So thank you very much. Muchas gracias. And I hope to see you all upstairs. Let's go enjoy some music and dancing and network and connect and ask more questions. And we'll see you up there. Thank you.
Yeah, let's give another big round of applause for Staci, because she forgot to thank herself. And she has done a phenomenal job with this series. And so really from day one, it's been a dream to work with you, to get this together, to have this presence at the ION, I think has been a game changer for each and every single one of us. So we'll thank Staci again and Dream Big Ventures as well.
Thank you.